On this week's edition of the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast, I go over the news that casting for James Bond has begun, the full cast for The Batman Part 2 being revealed, the new Lanterns trailer from HBO, as well as new details regarding the new Jedi Order movie that was canceled. All this and more on the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast. Well, welcome back to another Friday News Roundup edition of the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam Zolni. Thank you so much for listening, however you may be listening, whether it's through Substack, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or now YouTube, or if you're in outer space and listening to it that way on whatever fancy technology you're listening to. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your support. I love doing this, and I can't believe I'm already on episode 9 as I'm recording this. This is just wild. I'm having a blast doing this, and I have no plans of stopping anytime soon. You guys are awesome. Just whether it's listening or providing comments or feedback and subscriptions, I appreciate all of it. I can't thank you enough for it. And as always, I have a few little announcements before we get into the major news of the week, although I am recording this a day earlier than usual, so if something huge happens uh, and it's not on this podcast, it'll definitely be on the next one. Of course, knowing my luck, there's going to be like an Avengers trailer released on the day after I record this. So, but either way, that'll if any major news does drop and it's not on here, it will definitely be on next week's podcast. You can guarantee that. But as for announcements, big thing is obviously the Substack. Currently, I have up there a review of the Marvel special presentation that got released last week, Punisher One Last Kill. Pretty good. I have a full review on it and how I think it may connect to Spider-Man Brand New Day because obviously Punisher is in that movie. Can't wait for that. So go check that out. There will be a lot of reviews coming up in the next probably a little under 2 months. The next 2 months are going to be mostly reviews. I'm going to be seeing a lot of the major blockbusters. Like next week's article is going to be a spoiler-free Mandalorian and Grogu review, and I'll be doing a spoiler-filled review the week after for paid subscribers. So if you want to check out all my spoiler thoughts on movies like Mandalorian and Grogu or Spider-Man or Supergirl or Disclosure Day, be sure to upgrade your subscription. All it is $6 a month or $50 a year. Just a cup of coffee. And with that, you will be able to submit questions to this podcast that I'll answer after the news segment. You'll get access to monthly rewind reviews of old films, and you can even request reviews for me to review and analyze, as well as the spoiler reviews, as I mentioned, for any major blockbusters that are coming out. That way, I can kind of give more details and more of my thoughts on some of the bigger plot points that maybe I'm not going to touch in my normal spoiler-free review. If you want to see all that, you just got to upgrade your membership. And to the people who've upgraded, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And even if you aren't a paid member and just a free subscriber, thank you so much too. Because obviously, I can't do this without either of you. I'm so thankful for your support. But with that, let's get on to the news. First topic. It has been reported that Nina Gold, who has done a lot of casting for the Star Wars sequels as well as Game of Thrones, is now on the hunt for the next James Bond. Amazon MGM Studios released a statement last week saying, quote, "The search for the next James Bond is underway. While we don't plan to comment on any specific details during the casting process, we are excited to share more news with 007 fans as soon as the time is right." And it has been said that Nina Gold was hired to look for a fresh face for 007. She's gotten people like Emilia Clarke, Eddie Redmayne, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega. All of them have kind of gotten their big breaks thanks to her. So obviously she has a pretty good idea of what to look for when it comes to certain roles. And James Bond being British, she definitely has a connection in the UK especially, which is what you want for a casting director for James Bond. I'm interested to see who they pick. I don't really have a person in mind that I would like. I mean, Idris Elba and or either Henry Cavill or Idris Elba, I would have loved maybe 10 years ago, but I think they both may be a little bit too old, especially if you're wanting to restart the James Bond franchise. Is probably not the best idea to start with a actor that's in their 30s or 40s, just because again, it's a very physically demanding role. I mean, it broke Daniel Craig both emotionally, mentally, and physically from just the sounds of it, especially when he got by the time he got to Spectre. And it's like if you want to have a James Bond that's going to be able to do more than two movies without just getting completely burnt out, I do think it's better to go younger. And I think going with a more unknown actor also will help. I think because then you don't have to worry about the the expectations are going to be on the writer and the director to be able to really bring that version of James Bond to life, and the actor gets a chance to kind of start fresh, and especially because they're going to be compared to such big names like Connery, you Daniel Craig, Roger Moore. I mean, there's so many big names attached to Bond. To maybe go with someone who's less well known might help kind of give them a chance to make it their own and not have to worry about the comparisons as much because they're not such a big name. I'm excited, and especially I do think they're going to go younger because if you're a video game player like me, they have a new James Bond game coming out called 007 First Light, and it's about James Bond in his at the beginning in his younger years. So I could kind of see some brand synergy there where it's like, okay, let's keep the idea of a young, hip James Bond. Plus, keeping the playboy aspect of him, it does get to a point. I mean, all the James Bond actors kind of got this where it gets to a point where the actor's so old that having them hit on younger girls just gets more uncomfortable than entertaining. So getting a younger guy to be able to play that aspect and not have it be immediately like, oh, you're old enough to be this woman's father or grandpa, and especially the case of like Roger Moore, where he was like, look, I'm getting too old for this. It's getting weird even for me, man. And I know it's the '60s, but I'm out. I'm out. So I think that's another reason why you would want to go younger, is just so that you don't have people thinking that in the back of their minds when those scenes play out. Because again, that's part of Bond's character. You can't really diminish that aspect. But if you can just not have it be so awkward when you have an older Bond hitting on, a 20 year old, girl in her early 20s. You don't want that. So I'm excited to see what they do. Again, Denis Villeneuve is attached to direct, so I'm really excited to see what he does with the Bond franchise, especially since, I mean, I know he's done action movies that aren't sci-fi, but for me, it's just he's so much. I think sci-fi when I hear his name, and Arrival, the Dune movies, Blade Runner 2049. So it'll be just interesting to see him kind of go back to more of the Prisoners in Sicario style of filmmaking for him. Just I think it'll be interesting to just see what kind of flair he brings to James Bond. I'm excited. I have high hopes for this franchise, and I think Amazon has shown that they're willing to kind of let their movie division do their own thing, especially again with the success of Project Hail Mary. I think they're not going to be it's not going to be as meddling as maybe the Broccoli's were in the later years with James Bond and the Daniel Craig movies, and because it just sounded like especially Spectre just sounded like a huge mess behind the scenes. So I'm excited. We'll see what happens. Obviously, I don't expect to I expect we'll probably get a casting announcement in the next year, maybe even by like this fall. Especially if they're looking now, I imagine in the next 6 months, I would imagine that we would get an announcement of like, here's who James Bond is going to be playing. Because after Dune Part 3 is all done, Denis Villeneuve is going to be moving on to this movie, so they would have to start casting soon. But speaking of casting, the Batman Part 2, Matt Reeves is filming this right now. Thank God it is finally going to come out. It feels like it's been a decade since the first one came out. I'm so glad that we're finally getting it filmed. And with that, he actually released the major cast for this film. Now, some of the roles are rumored for, and some of them haven't even been announced. Obviously, you got Robert Pattinson, Jeffrey Wright, Andy Serkis, Colin Farrell. A lot of the major players from the first movie are coming back. But then we got Sebastian Stan as rumored to be Harvey Dent, Scarlett Johansson as Gilda Dent, his wife, and then Charles Dance as Christopher Dent, and then Sebastian Koch, I think that's how you say his name, is Koch. So if that's not how you say it, I'm sorry. And then Brian Tyree Henry, who are both in it, but we don't know what roles they're playing as. So that'll be. I'm interested to see how that goes down. But I'm excited for it. I think this is a great cast. There's no one on here. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing here. They all are sounding to. They're it's a good cast. I'm excited to see what Sebastian Stan does as Harvey Dent. I thought he did a good job as Bucky and the Winter Soldier in the Marvel movies, and Harvey Dent would be very much a different character for him. And like I know that we've had Two Face in a couple of other movies, although again, Batman Forever, that really wasn't Two Face. It was just Tommy Lee Jones trying to out Jim Carrey, and then I liked Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight. I didn't mind his Two Face. My biggest issue was, and it's the one issue I have with that film really, is I felt his Two Face comes too late in the movie. It really feels tacked on. So, and then they kill him at the end. If they had left him alive and he shows up again in Dark Knight Rises, that would have been cool. But the fact that we only get actual Two Face in that movie for like a grand total of, man, maybe 15, 20 minutes at most of screen time. And again, it's a packed movie, so I get why he wasn't in it a lot, but at the same time it's like I almost wish you didn't do Two-Face and just stuck with the Joker, cuz part of it is just Heath Ledger's Joker is such a vacuum in that movie where it's just he sucks all the attention whenever he's on screen. Even when he's not on screen, you're thinking about him because the movie is focusing so much on his actions and what he's doing that it really does feel like Two-Face is a little bit of an afterthought or just almost like a plot element for Joker rather than a character all in of himself. And I mean Two-Face, not Harvey Dent. So I would be really excited to have an entire movie of like, okay, by the end of Act 1, Sebastian Stan has become Two-Face, and we actually get a proper full movie where Two-Face is the villain and he's not a joke or he's not kind of tacked on. So, and it sounds like they're definitely going to be bringing elements from Long Halloween. That's where Gilda Dent really is a major player in the comics. So I'm excited to see Scarlett Johansson play her. Again, it'll be a different context and different role, and I know she's going to do well. And Charles Dance is just amazing as always, and to have him kind of be almost the abusive father and the guy that belittles Harvey to the point where it kind of drives him to psychosis a little bit, or at least is part of the reason for his psychosis. I think he's going to do a great job at that. I have no doubts there. But overall, I'm really excited. As far as who the other two people could be connected to, the only thing that I could think of, and this is me maybe wish casting more than speculating with any actual evidence, I would think it'd be cool to have the Court of Owls be kind of a secondary slash shadowy villain instead of because the mob is kind of have it be that the mob is kind of gone. I mean, you really only have you have Penguin kind of running the mob now, thanks to the Penguin show. We know that. So instead of doing like another mob, having a mob movie kind of like The Dark Knight, have it be something where, oh, Batman didn't realize there's a whole other layer to Gotham's corruption that no one even knows about, and that's the Court of the Owls. And maybe like Harvey Dent and him kind of team up to take down the court, and the court attacks Harvey, and that's how he becomes Two-Face. And they kind of drive him to madness a little bit. I think that would be kind of cool and interesting, and both of those actors have a lot of range, so that makes it kind of difficult to pin down. So it's mostly, again, that would be me just wish casting, but other than that, I don't know. I know a lot of people wanted Mr. Freeze, and Matt Reeves even talked about Mr. Freeze. I just don't know if you could do. I don't know if I would want a Mr. Freeze and Harvey Dent Two-Face story kind of mashed up into one movie. I just don't know how how well that would fit, because they're very much their own separate things, and I mean, even again in the comics they don't really interact much, to the point where I just don't see how you can really mesh those two stories together, really. So we'll see. I'm excited for this movie. I cannot wait. Comes out next year. I imagine maybe we get a little teaser around Comic Con time in July, if depending on how much filming they have done. But I can't wait. I loved the Batman, the first The Batman. Man, love that title, but it does not fit in a sentence really well. I loved The Batman, so I can't wait for part two. It's going to be awesome. But continuing on the DC train, we got a new teaser from HBO Max for the Lanterns trailer, or for the Lantern show, excuse me. And man, this was better than the initial teaser. I was not too hot on the initial teaser, just because it really felt like a throwback to kind of the late 2000s, early 2010s, where everything was trying to copy the Christopher Nolan trend of making heroes more grounded and realistic with the muted colors. And I really didn't want that, especially for a Green Lantern show. Just give me Green Lanterns. And this one, while I'm still a little skeptical, just because again they're very much like, it's True Detective on Earth about two spacemen. I just, that's where I'm not too sure. Uh, but overall, it was nice to see some more superhero action in here. We get to see Hal Jordan in the suit using some constructs, and we even get a glimpse of Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner in there. It really focuses on the idea of a Green Lantern's biggest adversary is fear. So I'm excited about that. That's very much a Green Lantern thing. We even see some shots in space, so it's like, hey, we may actually get some space in this show. Um, I like how they established that Hal Jordan has been around for a while. We have a little flashback in the teaser where we see a young um, John Stewart watching Hal Jordan on the TV, so maybe it's kind of like a, oh, don't meet your heroes type of thing. My biggest worry, and it really looks like from this teaser, is they're going to kill Hal Jordan. It really does feel like, oh, halfway through the show, Hal Jordan's going to die, and John Stewart's going to have to figure things out on his own, because, of course, Guy Gardner's not going to offer any help. my so that'd be a little bit of a bummer, to be like, hey, we got Hal Jordan and he's gone. So that's a bit of a disappointment if that turns out to be true. And again, I just don't know how you incorporate aliens into True Detective. Small town has a huge secret. I mean, part of it is I feel like that's just been so overdone. I mean, you've had True Detective do it, you've had Reacher do it a couple of times. After a while, it kind of becomes a cliche of like, oh wow, another Midwestern town that has a super duper deep dark secret and is run by a cabal of secret people. In this case, it'll probably be aliens. I mean, even Peacemaker kind of did that with the bug people. I can't remember the official name, but so that's my only worry, is just there's gonna be some cliches and stuff in there that I'm not really interested in. Again, for Green Lantern, give me a sci-fi cop show, and there are ways. I know that can be expensive, but one, you're HBO, you do House of Dragon. This is going to be an 8 episode series, so you're not going to be filming 24 episodes that you need effects for, and if you don't want to do effects, an effects heavy show, then you shouldn't have picked Green Lanterns. I'm sorry, like that's when you make it a movie then. But I mean, overall, I'm still excited. Comes out August 17th, so I'm hopeful that it does well and that it is good. It's Damon Lindelof, so he's kind of hit or miss for me. I didn't watch Lost, so I wasn't part of that controversy. The Watchmen show, there are aspects of it I liked and some of it I didn't. Overall, I didn't think it respected the original graphic novel that much. There were some neat ideas in it. I just didn't agree with where it took a lot of the main Watchmen characters. The original characters in it I enjoyed, but I didn't like how it progressed, like Doctor Manhattan or what's his name? Not Ozymandias. Thought was all right, but mainly Doctor Manhattan and Laurie. I did not like where they uh took their characters. But we'll see. I'm hopeful that it's good. Again, the nice thing is with James Gunn, okay, the script has gone through some stuff. It's been reviewed. This isn't just something that was slapped together so they could get a show out. There was a lot of meticulous work that went into this, so I'm hopeful. But actually, speaking of Damon Lindelof, this is a perfect segue. In case you had forgotten, because I sure did, there was at one time a new Jedi Order movie that Daisy Ridley was set to star in as Rey Skywalker. It would take place after Episode 9. He said, and I quote, "Just talk about the just to talk about the bantha in the room. I was fired off a Star Wars movie. They asked me, 'What do you think a Star Wars movie should be?' And I said, 'Here's what it should be.' And they said, 'Great, you're hired.' And then 2 years later, I was fired. What we were attempting to do was to have this conversation in the movie, which is to say there is a force of nostalgia and there's a force of revision and they're at odds with one another. And let's do the Protestant Reformation inside Star Wars, and it didn't work." So again, it's hard to keep track of what is in development at Lucasfilm and what isn't, because it's really weird. They are very quiet when it comes to the projects not panning out. They're just kind of like, "What? You thought you were still doing a new Jedi Order movie? What are you talking about? We didn't say that." It really feels like they're almost embarrassed to be like, "Yeah, we're not doing that anymore." And I've said it before. I don't think it's a bad idea to continue Rey's story in the hands of a good writer. I think you could progress her story in an interesting way, and it'd be kind of cool to see the series move away from the Skywalker saga. I mean, I do think they should respect the idea of Episode 9, for better or worse, is the end of that saga. That bit of history with the Empire and Rebellion, those specific characters, the Skywalkers, the Solos, all that, it should be done. Leave it behind, let it go. Let's do something new, and even if that includes Rey and Finn and what's Oscar Isaac's name? Character's name. Wow, I'm Poe Dameron. Like, I'd be fine with that. Again, in the case of the hands, in the hands of the right, in the hands of the right writer, I think it could work. And I don't mind his idea of like doing a Protestant Reformation, kind of like a redefining of the Force, kind of thing. Because my pitch for this movie always would have been like have Rey kind of have a moment, a crisis of faith kind of thing, where if you're in any kind of religion, there's always the talk of how much of your faith is based on what your parents told you and how much of it is actually you believing it. And I think it would be kind of cool to explore that idea of Rey of like, hey, I just kind of discovered I had this, and then I was told by a few people, here's what you are, here's what the Force is, just believe it. And it's like, okay, what happens when those people are gone and you're the one having to carry on that legacy? Like, what do you actually believe about the Force? What do you think a Jedi should be? And kind of letting her redefine that for herself. I think that could be interesting, again, in the hands of a good writer. So I don't think it was a bad idea for him to kind of go in that direction. And as far as it being canceled, I really just don't know what Disney and Lucasfilm are doing. Again, like I've said, I think a lot of it's going to be just get Mandalorian and Grogu out, get Starfighter out, get whatever that we already had in far into production out in the next couple of years, and then just kind of go from there, see what we think, make a plan, and actually make sure that we're going to do stuff before we announce it. Because I think that is one of the big faults of the Kathleen Kennedy tenure at Lucasfilm, is just there were so many projects that were announced, and then it was just kind of like they just didn't talk about them after that. Like Marvel, at least when they made an announcement and then they canceled it, you at least got a revised movie slate where it's like, okay, Blade movie no longer happening. You know, Armor Wars movie no longer happening. Here's what we got on tap for the next couple of years. Like at least we had that. But with Lucasfilm, it was just kind of like Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie. Maybe it's happening. He's working on the script. You know, that Dawn of the Jedi movie with James Mangold. Oh, he's a busy guy. Maybe we'll get that movie one day. It's just there's a lot of just and at some point, especially when you are the head of a major studio, you kind of have to put your foot down and be like, okay, this is what's happening, this is what isn't. Because as a fan, it's hard for fans to get excited because it's like, well, I don't know if this is actually happening or not. Like the Rey movie, it was announced at Star Wars Celebration, what, like 2 years ago? And then it's just nothing after that. And then they asked Daisy Ridley what's going on, and she's like, I think it's still happening. They haven't told me it's not. I'm ready to go whenever. I've looked at a script. So it's just one of those things where Dave Filoni and again, apologies. I keep forgetting the woman that's also co-running it with him. But the big thing is those two. I think that's one of the big things they need to nail down is just okay. Here's what we're announcing, and we're not announcing anything until we know for a fact that we are going to stick to it. And if it does fall through, we let people know and then say, hey, this movie's not coming out, but this movie is for sure coming out. Because that is how you keep a brand in people's minds. Like, for all the issues Marvel has had over the past few years, they've at least been able to say, hey, Blade seems like it didn't work out. Armor Wars movie didn't work out. I think there was one other movie didn't work out. But hey, we got you Thunderbolts, we got you Fantastic Four, Doomsday is coming, Spider-Man is coming, X-Men's going to come down the line. They at least have enough on their slate that they know that they're going to get out that keeps some hype for fans. But with Star Wars, it's just been, I don't know, like Ahsoka season 2, other than like a little blurb on like a Disney business call saying, "Oh yeah, that's in production." We have heard nothing from that. No stills from the set. No, hey, you know, shooting is over. We're excited for you guys to see what we made. It's just, hey, by the way, through the grapevine, Ahsoka season 2 is going to come early 2027. Like they just need to communicate better with the fans. And it's like even I don't know if maybe they're just so scared of backlash that of whatever they put out that they just don't want to have an official announcement for people to crap on, and so they're just like, hey, maybe if we just have a game of telephone go out from us to eventually the tab to the newspapers and everything. Newspapers, I feel old. The news sites saying, hey, this is coming out around this time. That way we don't have the backlash to deal with. People can just kind of grumble if they want or get excited if they want, and eventually what they're creating is indifference, which is what you really don't want. But speaking of canceled movies, the Hunt for Ben Solo, excuse me. Fans are really clamoring for that. Obviously, with Mandalorian and Grogu about to hit theaters this weekend at premieres, there have been people putting up billboards, having trucks with the words "Justice for Ben Solo" signs saying "missing" and showing a picture of Kylo Ren and / Ben Solo. For those of you who didn't know, this was actually a pitch that both director Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver pitched to Lucasfilm, but ultimately was shut down by Disney. The idea was that it was a Ben Solo movie. Sorry, I had to do the pun. feel free to groan, roll your eyes, pause the video, and face palm, whatever you need to do to recover from that. It was supposed to be a Ben solo movie set after the Rise of Skywalker, but it was nixed by Bob Iger because they're like, well, it's he's dead. He died in that movie, which he did. So why would we have a movie about him coming back? And apparently Driver loved playing the character. He said, and I quote, "I love that character and I loved playing him." Everyone loved the idea, but apparently Bob Iger was just like, "Nope." Quote, they they didn't see how Ben Solo was alive, and that was that. And on the one hand, it is disappointing that we don't get this, but on the other hand, he died. I'm sorry. Again, maybe that's something where you go to JJ and say, "Hey, I think there's more that we can do with this character. Don't kill him off at the end of our movie, or at least make it ambiguous, kind of like a Boba Fett thing where it's like, hey, he fell down a pit. There's nothing that says he can't come back. Kind of just do the comic book logic of no body, no death." But I mean, it was a definitive death in that movie, and my biggest thing is I always have a mixed feeling on fan campaigns because on the one hand, it's like I love it when fans are passionate about something. They're like, "Hey, we really want to express ourselves to this movie studio that we really like this idea. We want to see it." But my my only worry is twofold. One, I mean, we don't know what the movie looks like. So the concept and idea of it may be great. And then it comes out and you go to the theater and you're like, "What the heck is this?" Like kind of like the joke from the movie Fanboys where it's just at the end it's like, "Hey, what if this sucks?" And then it's like it comes out, you're like you hype the idea of this movie up in your head so much that when you go see it it's like, "Oh, no movie could meet my expectations," kind of a thing. And two, I mean, I want studios to listen to the fans to a point. I mean, in the end of the day, there's a reason I'm sitting on a computer recording my thoughts about the news versus the people that are actually making the decisions. Now, granted, Lucasfilm doesn't have the best track record of making decisions, but this is more of a general thing. Like another fan movement that I always go to, and sorry if you're part of this because I don't mean everyone involved in it, but like the Snyder Cut movement, where just for the longest time you just had Zack Snyder DC fans really pushing for the Snyder Cut of Justice League to be released. And on the one hand, I appreciate the passion, but then the problem is sometimes some of that movement boils over to toxicity and bullying, where it's just every video is hashtag release the Snyder Cut or hashtag release Hunt for Ben Solo. And it gets to a point where it's like, well, I don't want movie studios making decisions because they were bullied and threatened into them. I don't like that precedent because again, at the end of the day, there's a reason that I'm a fan and not on the creative side. Not saying that everyone in Hollywood is creative because God knows there's a reason why Star Wars is kind of in the spot that it's in because the people that have been attached to it haven't taken the best care of it. But at the same time, I just I don't want audiences do get to dictate what they want, and that's through their wallet. And again, I'm not saying you can't express yourself, but I just worry with these kind of movements when it gets to a point where it feels like you almost bullied and threatened the studio into releasing a movie rather than actually having it released because of fan passion, because that's what I want. And again, part of this too is then you have the fans that were passionate about that movie that didn't do all that stuff getting lumped in with the bad ones, and I don't want that. So I mean, if this comes out, I would see it. I just don't think the concept makes sense because I mean I'm with Bob Iger on this. The guy died, so it'd be really stupid to just be like, and actually he didn't. Like I just don't know how. From the word go, the premise of the movie is faulty, and I just don't know how you can square that circle and make it a good movie. But we'll see. Again, I think Star Wars Celebration is happening next year, so I would think next spring is where we really kind of get the new slate where we finally kind of get to see what Dave Filoni has been cooking up and what plans he has. And I think that's when we'll get a Marvel Studios style slate of here's what's coming out in the next 3 to 4 years. Here's the TV shows, here's the movies, here's your first look at Starfighter, or maybe your second look, depending on when they drop the first teaser for that, which I think will probably be in front of Avengers Doomsday this December. Kind of like what they did with Force Awakens, where they had that little teaser that played in front of stuff, and then get a full-fledged trailer in the next spring. But we'll see. I'm not wanting to be down on Star Wars. Star Wars was a big part of my childhood. It's taken a lot of lumps. It's not in the greatest place, but I still think with the right creatives behind it, it is still salvageable. And moving on to our last piece of news, this is a bit of a sad one, but I just wanted to throw it out there because I've interacted with this actor a lot through his work. Actor Tom Kane, who did the voice of Yoda in the Star Wars: The Clone Wars, along with being the narrator for the Clone Wars. So he was the guy that was, the galaxy is in peril. That he did that voice, and he also was, I think he was Plo Koon. Um, he was what else? He was also Boba Fett. He did a lot of different Star Wars voices. He also, if you played the Batman Arkham games, he was Mayor Quincy Sharp and James Gordon for the first two. So I mean, you have heard his work in something, and he passed away at the age of 64. And I mean, it's really sad that he passed away, but his work lives on, and he's gone, but he was a part of our childhoods for a lot of us, and there his body of work speaks to his legacy, and he leaves behind a lot of good work that will be enjoyed by generations to come. But rest in peace, Tom Kane. Thank you so much for everything you gave us Star Wars fans. But that's all I had for the news. So moving on, we will do the paid subscriber question that I have today. Shout out to my current paid subscribers. So Bert, Mr. Hyde, Lisa, Cameron, thank you so much for being paid subscribers. If you want to get a shout out, that can be that's part of the perks too. Any new paid subscribers, I'll shout out here on the podcast. But the question I have this week is Star Wars related, so perfect. It's a theme, where I got a bit of a theme going. But it's multiple questions, but all kind of wrapped up in one. And the question is, as a massive Star Wars fan and a dad of two, how are you handling introducing your kids to a galaxy far, far away? Are you strictly enforcing release order, episodes 4, 5, and 6 first, or will you let them forge their own path? And honestly, how will you handle it if one of them tells you your favorite character is Jar Jar Binks? Well, for that last question, depending on how old they are, I will let it slide. But if they are in their teens and still like Jar Jar Binks, I failed as a father and can only express my severe disappointment in their judgment. And I may have to tighten the leash as far as adult or more mature decisions for them goes. So maybe they don't get their driver's license until 17 or 18 instead of 16. Uh, but as far as how I'm introducing them, I've kind of started introducing them to Star Wars a little bit. They've seen me play some of the video games that are not too scary for them to watch. I have young kids, so I have to be a little bit more conscious about what they see right now. They've seen bits and pieces of the movies. I've shown them clips of some of the like ship battles and stuff, and they thought it was awesome. But as far as when I actually like properly introduce them to the movies, oh, and I've shown them a little bit of Star Wars Rebels, the cartoon show, because that one was a little bit more kid friendly, at least the first season. So just kind of giving them their first taste, like they know what a Tie Fighter is, an X-wing, a Jedi, a lightsaber. So they're very well acquainted with the basics. As far as actually how I'm going to show them the movies when we get to that point, that's a tough one because I've heard I've been mulling it over in my mind because I've heard that just because of how the effects are in the original trilogy versus the prequels and obviously sequels, you know, they can be a bit jarring for kids who are used to modern movies. So maybe showing them 4, 5, and 6 first, and then doing the prequels and everything, um, might be better, just so they can they don't have the glossy, clean look of the prequels thanks to the CGI and everything, and then all of a sudden it's like, here's the sequels where everything's a set, and what little CGI we do have is not the greatest because it couldn't get integrated as well because those movies weren't shot to integrate CGI models. So when they are there, they stick out like a sore thumb. But I also think, especially because I definitely like, I'll show them the sequels at least once because I want them to see everything and then make a judgment for themselves as to which ones they like and they don't like. But also because you got like Solo and Rogue One there, especially Rogue One, where it's like that movie fits so well into A New Hope, and just like those movies basically make one big long movie. I'm kind of almost tempted to show them in order of episodes. So like do the prequels 1, 2, 3, then Solo, Rogue One, original trilogy, then sequel trilogy. But also I think it also will depend on how old they are when I first show it to them, because like obviously Revenge of the Sith is the darkest of all of them, and although Rogue One gets pretty dark, especially at the end. So I think it's also just going to depend on what I think they can handle at that time. So it might be something where I show them the original trilogy, do the prequels, Rogue One, Solo, all that, and then do the sequels. Um, but at this time, I would like kind of, mostly because also it would be interesting to see them introduced to it in a different way than I was, where it's like you kind of get to see everything in quote unquote chronological order in terms of the movies, where it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, Solo, Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like I think that'd be kind of cool to see how, for a first time viewer, how that shapes their perspective. So that's how I would like to do it, but again, I think it's mostly going to just depend on whenever I do show it to them, because I saw the first time I saw Star Wars, I think I was, oh man, let's see, I was in like second or third grade, so like 7 or 8. So it's just, I think it's going to just depend on how well they can handle certain scenes in the prequels, again, especially in Revenge of the Sith, with how dark that one gets, and again, Rogue One, same thing. But what I would like to do is do it chronological order, just because I think that would be so cool, and especially when you get to films like Solo and Rogue One, I feel like it would feel a little strange for me to do 4, 5, and 6, then do 1, 2, 3 Solo, and then it's like, oh, and here's Rogue One that directly connects to the movies you just watched. Like that's the way we saw it, but that's mostly because of how it releases, and I think it does flow well enough that where you can just go 1 through 8 or 1 through 9, and with the two spin-offs sprinkled in the timeline where they're supposed to be. So that's how I plan to do it. But let me know how you would show someone Star Wars for the first time, what order you would do, because there's a lot of different orders from what I've heard, and I'm just kind of taking the simplest routes. But thank you so much for sending in that question. Before we get out of here, what I'm watching, obviously, like I said, I watched Punisher: One Last Kill. Got a review up on the Substack right now, so go check that out if you haven't already. I'll be going to see Mandalorian and Grogu on opening weekend, and then I'll have a spoiler-free review for everyone next Wednesday when after I've seen it and gotten a chance to write about it. And then the week after that, on that Monday, I will be doing a spoiler-filled review, sending that out to everyone who's a paid subscriber. So if you want to get to see my spoiler-filled thoughts on the movie, again, upgrade your subscription. But other than that, that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. As always, I appreciate your support, and I will see you next week. Bye.